Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to begin by thanking Michelle for that very kind introduction. And I'd also very much like to express my heartfelt thanks to my friend and colleague Andreas for inviting me here to what I can only regard as an extremely joyous occasion. We are seeing the birth of something really great here in Korea. I have to tell you, Andreas, this is really a very touching and special moment for me. In 1959, Richard Feynman wrote what has now become a very famous article, perhaps I should call it a manifesto at this point, titled "There's Plenty of Room at the Bottom." In this article, he explored the possibilities of doing things on a very small scale. He concluded that it was in principle possible to control the structure of matter atom by atom, and that this would open doors to vast realms of scientific exploration, not to mention applications. And history has proved him right. But let's ask the question, why, back in 1959, did Feynman even consider such things? They certainly were not part of the mainstream scientific agenda of the time. I think he considered such possibilities because he had an unbounded curiosity and a thirst for exploration that drove him to go beyond the horizon of what was already known. It is the drive to go beyond the horizon, to explore the frontier, that I want to celebrate this afternoon. And so, with apologies to the ghosts of Richard Feynman and of Gene Roddenberry, I've titled my talk, "There's Plenty of Room Beyond the Horizon, an invitation to boldly go where no one has gone before." Why did I choose this title? It is because I want to convey to you how important I feel it is that we continue to expand our horizons, and that today's occasion, the dedication of the Eigler Center for Quantum Nanoscience, is just the right moment to speak on that subject. So I've chosen 4 themes for my presentation today. They are the importance of exploration, the great ships of exploration, the philosophy of exploration, and the joy of exploration. Growing up in North America, as I did, when we think of exploration, we first think of the great voyages of exploration when people from Europe first came across to North America. And of course, this guy here, Christopher Columbus. This was what I would call the classical age of exploration. One of the ages of exploration that I've always had a great interest in is the so-called heroic age of exploration, epitomized by the exploration of Antarctica by the fellows that you see here, Roald Amundsen from Norway, Robert Falcon Scott from the United Kingdom, and Ernest Shackleton, also from the United Kingdom. And anybody who knows me knows my love of dogs, and so you'll note that I had to put dogs somewhere in this presentation. And then there's the modern age of exploration, epitomized by the trip to the moon by Armstrong, Aldrin, and Collins. What made these explorers great? Let's consider Ernest Shackleton. Was it success that made him great? Not at all. His entire expedition was one failure after another failure. But it was the most heroic failure of all time. He was known and he was absolutely remarkable for his ambition, his organization, his determination, and his leadership. These are things which are hugely important in any human endeavor. I'd like to share with you my favorite quotation about Sir Ernest Shackleton, the man you want to be with when everything goes wrong. So we can ask the question, was there a common thread? I think there were many things that these great explorers had in common. But the one thing that they had in common that I want to concentrate on this afternoon is they all had great ships to carry them beyond the horizon. So let's talk a little bit about the great ships of exploration. Columbus had these 3 ships, the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria. Shackleton had the Endurance. And Armstrong, Aldrin, and Collins had the Columbia and the Saturn V booster and the Eagle to take them to the moon and back. So these ships all played a very important role in the process of exploration. And great ships of scientific exploration is what I want to talk about next. The great ships of scientific exploration sometimes come in bottles. And when I say they come in bottles, I mean literally, not this ship, but look at this picture here. Here's some people looking into a cabinet, and there's a ship in a bottle right there. You can see the glass jar. Let me tell you why that was a great ship. Here's a picture of the ship from many years earlier with the great explorers who built and operated that ship. These explorers, there's the ship in the bottle. These explorers are Clinton Davison and Lester Germer. And it was with that ship that they went on what I think as the greatest scientific exploration of the 20th century. And that exploration was an experiment which demonstrated the wave nature of matter and verified the de Broglie hypothesis. And because they built that magnificent ship, not only did they confirm what the theoretical prediction was, they also were rewarded with the 1937 Nobel Prize in Physics. Now, exploration always comes with a price. It's not always easy. Look at what happened to Shackleton, from the young, very handsome, very virile man that you see on the left, to what the South Pole can do to somebody. The exposures was extreme. As a personal note, when I next return to Korea, I don't want you to look like this. Exploration isn't always easy. For instance, I found this picture of the Center for Quantum Nanoscience principal investigators after a long night of running experiments. Right now, my colleague Daniel Luss is looking at me saying, there are more dogs, it's just dawn. Exploration has its rewards. Let me give you a few examples. Many Nobel Prizes in physics have gone to scientists who have built their own ships of discovery. Here's one example, is Albert Michelson. The citation for his Nobel Prize in Physics was for his optical precision instruments and the spectroscopic and metrological investigations carried out with them. I found it very interesting that Stockholm actually paid attention to how important it was to build the instruments. Here's another example, is Ernst Ruska, who invented the electron microscope. And my colleagues and friends, Gary Binnig and Heinrich Bohr, who invented the scanning tunneling microscope. I know that for me, my success that I've had, all of my professional success really, has come from also building my own ships. Here's an example of one of them, and guess what? It is also in a model. And she is as beautiful today as she was when I first built her. And there were prizes that came from this too, most notably the Cobley Prize in Nanoscience. It was awarded to me for the work we did in there manipulating atoms. So it pays to build ships that carry you where no one has been before. And, I know that's been my personal formula for success as a scientist. So now I'd like to finish my talk with some statements of faith and philosophy, a little bit unusual. Normally, we give talks about science and physics, we don't talk about faith or philosophy. So for our first statement of faith, and since we're here in the chapel, let's go to the Bible. Seek and you shall find. But it might not be what you were expecting, and so keep your eyes and your mind open. We've now delved deeply into philosophy, and we're going to go a little bit further. The words of my thesis advisor, my friend, never leave a working experiment. And of course the words of Andreas and my very close friend and colleague, Christopher Lutz, never leave an experiment working. The philosophy that we had in a laboratory, a philosophy that Chris really did a very good job of teaching us, was turn the knobs clockwise. I hope everybody understands what it means to turn a knob clockwise. It means when you have some experiment, you set things up, you're getting the data that you want, and you get get the data that you want, but one knob hasn't been turned all the way to allow you to investigate some part of nature that you haven't ever had the chance to investigate before. Turn the knob clockwise, go and investigate. Another statement of faith, or philosophy I should say, seek out terra incognita, seek out land unknown. And again, from another great philosopher, boldly go where no man has gone before. And now for the ultimate statement of philosophy from perhaps the ultimate natural philosopher, Richard Feynman, who wrote, "The reason that you do it might be just for the fun." So today we celebrate the launching of the great ship of the IBS Center for Quantum Nanoscience. This was a picture just taken yesterday. It's really wonderful. I think it's going to really be the beginning of a great adventure of exploration and discovery. And then finally, today we celebrate the spirit of discovery here in Korea. And with that, thank you very much.